A federal investigation has uncovered shockingly high numbers of children working at cleaners at slaughterhouses for the major U.S. company PSSI. Scott Pelley dove into the issue for 60 Minutes.
And what did you find?
That there were minors employed across the country between the ages of 13 and 17 working the overnight shift.
This was not a mistake.
There's no way that this was just a mistake.
How many minors did you identify?
102 minors at 13 different plants in 8 different states.
PSSI says there is a, quote, company-wide prohibition against child labor, and it checks the eligibility of employees. But the problem expands far beyond just one company. Currently, several McDonald's franchisees are under investigation after more than 300 minors were found working in violation of federal labor laws. Investigators say the majority of the violations were in the state of Kentucky. This all comes as Republicans in several states are pushing legislation that would allow minors to work longer hours and to be placed in dangerous conditions.
So Hannah Dreier is joining us now. She's an investigative reporter for the New York Times who has been closely following this story. Thanks so much for joining us. I think a lot of people would be quite shocked to hear this information. I have kind of like a twofold question. How widespread is this? And can you sort of define, I guess, what is legal in terms of a minor working? Because a lot of, 16 and 17-year-olds have jobs, but I presume that there are restrictions on how they can be employed.
That's exactly right. So it's not that children can't work. Most people get a job as a teenager. I did. I assume you two did. But children are not allowed to work the most dangerous jobs. So that includes roofing, factory work, and working in a slaughterhouse overnight, like these 100 children were doing. That kind of work is off limits until you're 18. Children also are not allowed to work overnight shifts. And really, most of these laws come back to the children's physical safety. The idea is that it's fine for children to get some kind of after-school job, but we really don't want kids working jobs that can start to make them sick, or they can get hurt, or even die. And what we're seeing is more and more children in this country are ending up in exactly that kind of work, especially migrant children. We've seen nearly 300,000 migrant children cross the border on their own just in the last 2 years. And my reporting shows that the majority of those kids are ending up working full time.
So one of the things we pointed out in the intro is that Republicans specifically are looking to roll back some of these regulations. And we mentioned that they would include having children working in, quote, dangerous jobs. What would that be? Are some of the examples that you listed there, roofing and?
Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing. They're looking at putting children in slaughterhouses and also on assembly lines. And this is work that's been banned for kids since the 1930s, since the dawn of the child labor progressive movement. But we're dealing right now in this country with a labor shortage. And some of these Republican states, like you say, are looking to young people as young as 13 and 14 and trying to change those rules so that kids can participate in the workforce in this way.
Hannah, it is astounding. And my guess is then that, because my first thought, and I think a lot of people are going to think, well, I'm not going to let my kid work in a slaughterhouse or work in a dangerous factory assembly line. Because as you point out, this is the very kind of work that Upton Sinclair and many other pioneering journalists wrote about at the turn of the century that changed these laws. But you also mentioned in your reporting immigration and how that factors into this. And so are we to then believe that it will be people who are really desperate to have an income, to have a job, who will perhaps make the decision that their children should or can be eligible to work in these dangerous jobs because they have no other choices?
Yeah, I mean, you say, I'm not going to let my child work in this kind of situation. And I think most parents are not going to send their children into the slaughterhouse. But I talked to the children who were working at these slaughterhouses that were featured in the 60 Minutes reports, and they're here without their parents. They've come across the border on their own, and they're staying with a family friend, maybe an uncle they've never met. And they are under so much pressure to earn money to pay rent, to pay for food, to pay off a debt in a lot of cases. They end up taking these jobs, and there's nobody else watching out for them to sort of keep them safe. And what we're seeing is that they're ending up exploited in the worst way.
Wow. So your report also mentions that the Biden administration is sort of feeling pressure to move migrant children through the system quickly. You don't want them in these facilities, for years. But what does that mean when it comes to protecting these children?
I mean, it's really this tension. So every summer now of the Biden administration, we have seen a record number of children coming across the border, and they've started to back up in the system that processes them, which has led to children sleeping on the floor, children sleeping under those metal blankets, wall-to-wall coverage of a crisis at the border. And there's been a lot of pressure to move those kids out more quickly. And the result has been some kids have been sent to places they never should have been sent. They've been released to adults who have then turned right around and put them to work, taken their paychecks, and almost labor trafficked them.
So, Hannah, before we let you go, can you explain to our audience why this is a GOP-led effort to loosen these child labor law restrictions? Are we to believe then that the Democrats are not at all supportive of this? And if it's just the Republican Party, why?
So the Democrats right now are trying to increase fines for child labor. Right now, the maximum fine for any kind of child labor violation is $15,000, which when we're talking about JBS, the world's largest meat processor, they'll make that back in a matter of seconds. And so the Democrats have introduced a few pieces of legislation to raise that fine to something that might actually mean something. And Republicans are going the opposite direction. Like you say, there are these state laws. And what they're saying at the national level is, oh, child labor is already illegal. Why do we need to go in there and make any tweaks? And it's sort of become another one of these issues where partisan deadlock is stopping any progress.
I know you talked about a worker shortage, but are these in states where there is a severe worker shortage?
These are Midwestern states, states in the South, states where there's a lot of industrial work. And what I'm being told by some of the companies is that it's really these overnight shifts. They can't find anybody who wants to take that all-night shift working on an assembly line, working at a slaughterhouse. It's these sort of numbing shifts that wreck the rest of your days. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to take those jobs right now. And so we're seeing children brought in.
You could just pay people.
Yeah.
To encourage them to want to take that job. Hannah Dreier, really great reporting. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.